Okay, so I decided that I would post up a replay of a battle I did on Helm's Deep, and there are a couple of reasons for that, because one, I did notice that I woke up this morning and I was actually over 100 subs, which, I didn't really expect to happen. I didn't really expect to get any subs, to be honest with you. I just wanted to... It was back during the faction overviews that I started to get some subscribers, and I've just sort of carried it on since then. After I was done with the faction overviews, I was actually going to stop originally, because it was around the same time that my university semester was restarting, so I decided to carry on after I started getting subs. So, this is the first Third Age video I did was at Helm's Deep, so I think it would be fitting if I did another one. And this replay is pretty decent. Up against the Kingdom of Arnor, I'm playing as Isengard, so my army is way over there. The army compositions are, pretty simple for my army. I've got a bunch of pikemen, bunch of infantry, some berserkers, guards of Orthanc and crossbows, sort of a standard Isengard army, and Arnor, of course, very strong defensively. I won't go through the army compositions too much because that will become apparent as we play the game. But yeah, I was a little surprised when I started to get subscribers, and I'm even more surprised that I've continued to get subscribers. I've even got a new layout on YouTube because I got over 100 subs, which is kind of strange, but there you are. So this is going to be a sort of weird anniversary type video that I'm doing. So we've got a bunch of Arnor militia down here. This will also serve as a little bit of a pointer on what to do on Helm's Deep and what not to do, it must be said. But this battle starts off and sort of remains pretty close throughout most of it before one side gets the upper hand. So for the moment it's just the bombardment phase, of course. You want to be able to bombard the walls. Make sure that they can't use the walls as easily as you're approaching, because one of the real problems with Helm's Deep, if you're the attacker anyway, is there's not really an awful lot you can do against the enemy archers that are up on the top of the keep here. There's really not a lot that you can do against these guys unless you can somehow sneak your way in through these doors and disrupt their archers. That is sort of a silver lining, because the enemy cannot just abandon this gate, because for one, you're going to be able to get onto their archer position here, their forward archer position, and you're going to be allowed to get across this bridge and directly into the town centre. So they do need to hold the gate, otherwise a big chunk of their defence basically is null and void. But for the most part, the first part of the battle will almost always take part down here in this lower section. I'm now beginning to move forward because the enemy does have a trebuchet, which does force me to move forward somewhat. This is also another good thing to use and keep your opponent at this lower section, because it will mean that the trebuchet is going to be able to get a lot of nice hits in, and the trebuchet, when it hits, can cause devastation to a unit. So let's have a look at what he's got down here. He's got a lot of Arnor militia. Arnor have got some decent militia, and he's got some Arnor men-at-arms and heavy archers, and some battle-ready Dunedain. So this is a pretty decent defense down here. The battle-ready Dunedain are really the main worry. He also does only have one unit of archers down here. He retreated his other units. Oh no, he has two. So he has 2 units of archers. That's a pretty good idea. The only problem is, however, that he is leaving this area a little sparse, perhaps. And also the militia are not super sturdy, so he could probably do with having a few more units of pikemen. Because I have got a lot of pikemen, and pikemen are very good in this sort of situation. Here they are. Gotta love the Isengard pikes. I wish I could play on this quality during the actual battles, but unfortunately Third Age is not the most stable of things, so we have to play on the garbage settings most of the time, which is not brilliant. So I'm now coming under arrow fire, taking down some of my uruk-hai infantry that I've got on the ladders. So my plan here was to swarm the wall, because he has got kind of a low amount of defences here, so I wasn't going to sit back and bombard for a long time. Also, I would prefer to keep some of my catapult ammunition in reserve if at all possible, because it could come in handy later on in the battle. But he is now shooting his archers. Arnorian heavy archers are pretty good. They're not as good at range as Dunedain rangers, but they are probably a little bit better in melee in this sort of situation, because they're more heavily armoured. They won't do as much damage in melee, but they will hold for longer, and they're going to be a little bit more resilient to the likes of my crossbows. Although I have gone a little bit lighter on crossbows, because my opportunities to use skirmishers like he is using here, where he's just sort of mowing into my infantry, are more limited. I did also drop one of these ladders, and I decided I would make another hole in the wall over here. So I've got a bunch of Dunland veterans are going to be the first ones into the breach and attacking these Arnor militia. They'll be the first ones in, and then my plan is to back them up with a couple of units of pikes. They'll be pretty good in the choke point. Meanwhile, the AI is just figuring out how to use ladders. That was a pretty poor hit. Amazing that the ladders can survive a flaming shot when some heavily armoured infantry cannot. I'm glad that the ladders didn't get destroyed though. So he is also bringing up some men to defend the walls, as you will. You have some Arnor men-at-arms. Honestly, I think that the Arnor men-at-arms will struggle here, because I've got 2 units of uruk-hai infantry, and the uruk-hai infantry statistically is slightly better, and they also have more men in the unit. So he's going to need to rely on the presence of his archers to do the real damage here. He's also got some Arnor militia backing them up, but again, the Arnor militia, while it's pretty good in shield wall at just holding back the hordes, so to speak, it's not going to be brilliant at doing a great deal of damage because they're spears and they're militia. More uruk-hai infantry. Unfortunately, the game is... I'm putting these guys on the wall because I'm also shooting it with a catapult. It means that they are sort of retreating and I'm having to keep clicking on them to go up the wall. I'm now running my pikes in. The pikes are going to be very important for me in this battle because Helm's Deep is a map of many choke points, and pikes are very, very good at getting yourself through choke points, particularly the uruk-hai pikemen, because there's so many of them. Very good value for money pikes, these. They're pretty, well, I'd say they're not quite as good as the Dwarven Vault Wardens, nor are they as good as the Guards of Osgiliath, but they're pretty good nonetheless. The Dunland veterans are in. I'm just getting the pikes ready to charge in and support them. They're actually doing a decent job against the Arnor militia because he hasn't actually backed up his Arnor militia with anything. And that's the thing, you're going to need to back your Arnor militia up because they are still militia units. And while Arnor do have the best militia, it's still not going to be a match for a dedicated unit of decent heavy infantry. And the Dunland veterans are pretty good. He is charging in the battle-ready Dunedain now, but he's left it a little late because my pikemen are about to come in, and the battle-ready Dunedain don't want to be stuck in a choke point battle with the pikemen. It's getting a little laggy in this section here. I love the uruk-hai pikes. They just... something about them. Very iconic part of the army. Here's the wall battle. There are a ton of floating uruk-hai infantry. Now they're sort of getting into the walls, and they're pushing the Arnor men-at-arms back. On 2 fronts this, yeah, they're being overwhelmed. If they were going to hold the walls like this, they should probably have used a considerable amount more men down here. I'm also now pushing up the battering ram. They are being focused down by some Dunedain Rangers, but they are in loose, and they are only Dunland veterans, so that's not really too much of a concern. I just want the gate opened. And also back here, I do have the support units ready to go up through the gate as well, a couple of pikemen and a crossbow unit. And that's another point that I will be getting onto a little later on. I've got another crossbow unit over here, and a supporting unit of infantry that wasn't on a ladder. Getting ready to put the pikemen through this breach. More uruk-hai infantry, they're still not going up the ladder properly. And another unit of pikemen here. There goes the gate. Getting through that section is going to be difficult though with just the units I have up there for the moment. I need to put a little bit more pressure on them. Now he's retreating his men. And this is the first mistake that I think he made. On Helm's Deep, you need to hold this lower section as long as possible, because this lower section is a killing field for your archers. And your trebuchet, well, if you have a trebuchet anyway, he does. So you really want to be keeping them out in this section for as long as possible, so your archers up on the keep over here get as many kills as possible. And that is not something that he has done. You know, usually when I'm attacking on Helm's Deep, I take a significant amount of losses more than I have here. He's also trying to push out and sort of do as much damage with the Arnor militia as possible, and it is actually kind of working. I wasn't actually paying attention here. So he is actually doing quite a lot of damage to my pikes and to my Dunland veterans that are in here. So I'm pushing in another unit of pikes, and this should cause him to break. Also, because he is now almost completely dead up on the walls over here, I will be able to flank around with some uruk-hai infantry and hammer and anvil these guys into submission. This wall is nearly gone, 99%. But I had also almost used up my entire complement of ammunition in my catapult at this point. So that was unfortunate, but, you know, ultimately the catapult's use on Helm's Deep for the attacker is limited after this. I just thought maybe if I could get a shot in onto their walls, I could kill off a few of their archers or infantry. Don't need to use the ammunition if you don't need to. But I am pushing up some pikemen over here. I'm not going to charge in yet, though. At least I'm not going to charge in my pikemen. Because this is V-shaped pike formation is death to all that go in there. So I'm going to send in the Dunland veterans to make sure that they don't charge out while I'm setting up my pikes. But what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to put my crossbows in amongst these pikes and shoot in. This will force them to either go to either side of the gate and allow me in without me being slaughtered by this V-shaped formation, or they will have to charge out, in which case my pikes can sort of engage their pikes in a fair 1v1, which uruk-hai pikes should beat Arnor pikes 1v1 because there are more of them. But now I have surrounded this group of Arnor militia, and they will break, and I will kill them to the last man because I don't want them returning later on in the fight. So looking at the balance of power, I have killed 29% of his forces, and he's only killed 24% of mine, so things are looking very rosy for me at the moment. But the advantage of falling back early is that he has got a lot of troops in here, and it's going to be very difficult for me to force my way through Arnor pikemen, and he does of course have the advantage of having Dunedain knights, which are of course a very, very strong infantry unit. He's got a trebuchet as well, although the trebuchet's use has been very limited. He's only got one decent hit so far in the battle, and when I'm this close, he's not going to be able to shoot, which means that's a good thing for me, of course, because I've basically nullified his trebuchet without really needing to attack it. That's why he should have held the outer walls for a little longer, get more use out of his superior archers and his siege. So this unit of Dunland veterans is doomed, basically. I just sent them in to sort of stop them charging out. My pikes are getting into position. This unit of veterans is not going to get very far against battle-ready Dunedain and 2 units of pikemen. The pikes, though, won't kill them off quickly. It's more likely that they will break. Ooh. Camera. So here I am. I'm sending up the crossbows. I've got 2 units of pikes along this area. They are taking some damage, but they are close enough to the wall that it's not going to be a horrendous amount of damage. The uruk-hai units are pretty well armoured after all. And even though the Dunedain Rangers are very good archers, it's worth saying that I think that it's worth taking a few losses. As the orcs, you're not really going to be able to avoid that. Got a nice mass of uruk-hai there. So I'm going to be shooting. I'm not really going to be killing them at a great rate. I'm just going to be, you know, wearing their units down, and eventually if they keep their position, the pikes are going to be weak enough that I'll be able to send my pikemen in and just overwhelm. So I'm coming in through over the ladders, through the breaches, setting up my army. This is an area where he should be really shooting me a considerable amount, because I don't really want to attack with just like one small force. I want to get my whole force in there, just sending up a unit so he can't charge down and destroy my bracing position. This uruk-hai infantry is not going to get very far though against a lot of Arnor infantry. Battle-ready Dunedain in here as well. But this uruk-hai infantry, they should hold for a little while and prevent my forces from being attacked, which is possible, but he really should be getting a lot of archer fire into that blob. The battle-ready Dunedain still cutting down the Dunland veterans. They'll do a considerable amount more damage than the pikemen will. But my uruk-hai crossbows are firing their missiles into here, and the battle-ready Dunedain are a good target to go for as well. So he's going to retreat his battle-ready Dunedain at this point, and he's going to keep his pikemen in position for the moment. But I'm just going to keep firing here. This part of the battle is not really going to be changing all that much. Going back over to here though, I'm about to charge in a unit of berserkers. Now this of course is my best unit that I can use, and they will do a lot of damage against stuff like Arnor men-at-arms and even battle-ready Dunedain. The pikes really will be a pretty good thing to use against these guys because they can keep them at arm's length. However, even the pikes, like if the formation gets disrupted, they'll start getting chewed up by the berserkers. So the berserkers are going in, supporting the uruk-hai infantry that was already there. They're shaken, but the berserkers are going in, and they'll force their way to the front, do quite a lot of damage. But he has got a lot of forces here. He only had 1 unit of pikemen over here though. If he brought 4 units of pikes, I imagine there would be 2 over here as well, which would have been a little bit more tricky. I'm happy that there's only one unit of pikes over here, because, you know, the Arnor men-at-arms, while they're a pretty good filler infantry unit, they're not ideal. They do tend to die off more quickly than you would expect, especially when you're up against a faction with infantry that's as good as Isengard's. Isengard have got some decent infantry. Decent massable infantry as well. He's got some battle-ready Dunedain ready to charge in there. Going back over to here, still firing crossbow bolts in here, very slowly wearing this unit down, and it's the ideal shot for the crossbows. They've got a nice flat shot, nice close range, killing about 5 units per volley, because only the front crossbows are able to shoot, of course. But that's good, you know. Very slowly getting rid of them. He's still shooting his archers' arrows into this area over here, which is fine. You know, it's not bad. It's not a bad tactic, but the problem is he's not killing them quick enough. There's always going to be pikes ready to move in through this gate once I've either softened them up enough, or once he counters attacks, I'm going to be ready with enough pikemen to meet him. Not sure why this unit of Arnor men-at-arms is up here. It should certainly be down, ready to reinforce the pike position perhaps, or just down here. It's not going to be doing anything up there. I'm also sending in pikes down here. And some sort of very depleted units of Dunland veterans just looking to get some mass. Victory still seems certain for the Arnor pikemen. That's not surprising because of the position they have, but I can wear them down with enough damage. This battle-ready Dunedain is fighting against the berserkers on the front line here. But ultimately, when the pikes get to the front line, I'll be able to have a pike battle with him, and I will be backed up with berserkers, which should mean that I'll hold the advantage here. If he's going to hold this choke point, he needs to... Well, he has a decent shot down here, but he's not really using it. He needs to be focusing down the berserkers with arrows, because that's my real danger unit. He's charging out some battle-ready Dunedain, so he is coming out through the gate at this point. I did misclick here. I decided to retreat my pikes instead of retreating my crossbows, but now my crossbows are retreating, but unfortunately my pikes are now out of formation, and that means the battle-ready Dunedain will utterly destroy them in melee, which is a bit of a shame. But I do have another unit of pikes just behind, and I will brace in a secondary position just behind here, and that will lead to the battle-ready Dunedain having to charge into pikes, although he will probably reinforce his battle-ready Dunedain with Arnor pikemen, which will make that fight a little bit more dangerous for me. Still got a lot of forces down here ready to charge in and reinforce that attack onto this inner gate here. My general is in this Guards of Orthanc unit, but I don't really want to commit them because spears are not really brilliant on the attack. So I want to use these guys at the end if I need to pull out a clutch victory. Also got some more berserkers down here, a couple units of berserkers. All my berserkers are ready to move in. But here, this formation is pretty solid by him. These pikes are going to be doing a pretty good job, but the berserkers are now starting to do their damage. Starting to force the enemy back. And we'll be able to get in some pikemen through the breach then. That's what the berserkers are for. Establishing a foothold. I could have used them on the outer wall as well, but there was no real need because he didn't have a big defense down there. If you're playing on Helm's Deep as Isengard as the attacker, and you see that they've really stacked this area down here, it might be a good idea to use the berserkers to take a position on the wall. Sending out some uruk-hai crossbows. Now this is an interesting point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my crossbows down here so they've got a nice shot onto the sides of these battle-ready Dunedain. And this is the problem that you've got when you come out of the gate, is that you can do this, you can shoot into the sides of these guys, and then you'll start to lose the fight regardless. Which is why, if I were him, I would have gone, sort of put his pikemen in 2 rows inside the gate, where I couldn't shoot them with the crossbows, because even though it wouldn't have been as dangerous as the V shape when I charged in, it still would have been difficult for me to break down with just pikemen units over here. So nonetheless, he is sending out some more pikemen, so he's really trying to kill this attacking force over here. This uruk-hai pikeman at the front was not ready either. It was the one that I misclicked, and now it's sort of all out of formation and the battle-ready Dunedain are in amongst them. But this unit back here is going to be bracing pretty soon, so I'm not too worried about this position falling. I just need to get my crossbows into position. My catapult is still just sat here. It has got some ammunition left, but not really enough to influence the battle all that much. I'm just sending in more and more troops. A slightly depleted unit of uruk-hai infantry. Trying to get the mass to really do some damage here. And I am starting to... Ooh, I am starting to cause some damage here. There's starting to be like gaps appearing in this defense. At this point, he should really get these Arnold men-at-arms down off the wall here and patch up this gap. Because if I were to see this, I could then move around these pikes. And the pikes are really the centerpiece of the defense. If he starts to lose them and if they're outflanked, that's a problem. He's going to start to lose pretty rapidly. He has got some dismounted Dunedain Knights in this mix now, though, and they will be pretty difficult to get through, even for my berserkers. Particularly because my berserkers that I've committed at the moment are now starting to lose their unit models. But they are doing the damage that I need them to. Love the look of the Dunedain Knights. So we have more Arnold men-at-arms over here. I think he went a bit too heavy on Arnold men-at-arms. They're good filler units, as I said, but they're not brilliant at like just being flat out effective. So he's braced his pikemen back here, which is probably for the best because over here I am starting to fire volleys into the sides of these units. Here we go. Nice shots against Arnold pikemen and battle-ready Dunedain, both of which are very good targets to go after. My pikes, meanwhile, are bracing. They're ready. This unit of pikemen is still clinging to life, even though they're sort of all out of formation and sort of bunched together. They're more of a meat shield at this point. I'm also sending over my other unit of crossbows to join in, shooting into the sides of these guys. Victory is still a distinct possibility for them, but then that's because they're fighting against this unit. They're not fighting against the braced pikes yet. So moving back over to the Chokepoint battle over here, I'm sending up more uruk-hai infantry and getting ready to send up another unit of berserkers. So I feel like I need to break through here. Need to keep up the pressure. This unit of berserkers in here has got 29 units left, which is, you know, it's pretty decent. Berserkers start off with 76. They've been in there for a while as well, being poked by pikemen. But ultimately, it is a bit of a mess. Some berserkers are getting into the pipelines, but the problem that I have now, of course, is that there are battle-ready Dunedain and Dunedain Knights in amongst this group, so it's not going to be quite so easy as just cutting down pikemen that you've disrupted the formation of. Really, this is a bit of a mess, but, you know, I can afford it to be a bit of a mess because I've got the significant units advantage. Looking at the percentage killed, I've still got a 5% advantage, which is good. Moving back over to the ramp fight, and I'm still just shooting a lot of arrows into the sides of these guys. Defeat is almost a certainty. I think they have indeed reached the... No, they haven't actually. Still my half-dead pikes are the ones holding the line. He is sending out some Arnorian heavy archers that ran out of ammo into melee, which is good, and he's also sent them in on this side, which means they will be eating the arrow fire, which is much more preferable to him than the pikemen eating the arrow fire. So he's managed to reinforce his line and protect his more important units. So I don't know if that was intentional, but it was a good move nonetheless. This pike battle, though, will still go in my favour. These Arnorian heavy archers will not be able to break through a pike line. I'm not sure why these archers haven't been firing as much as they are now, because at the earlier point in the fight they weren't actually firing as much as they could have been. Still got some reinforcements ready to go up the ramp if I need them to. And still, this is the thing with Helm's Deep, it will quickly devolve into a very grindy chokepoint battle. And still these berserkers, the berserkers are getting pretty bloodied now though. There are only 17 of them left. That's what happens when you're up against Dunedain Knights and pikemen in formation, but they are still getting a lot of kills. They've got a lot of damage done, so I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do now is I'm sending a unit of uruk-hai infantry that are at the back, and I'm going to force them to the front, and I'm going to try and just push their line back a little bit with mass, because I have the mass advantage in this battle at this point. And also it gets more troops onto the front line. It'll pack the front line a little bit more. So here we go. All the dust being kicked up by the marching uruk-hai. These berserkers are still going. Berserkers is so tough to kill. Certainly a very important unit for Isengard, so I have managed to force my way in a little bit more thanks to that, and that's good. His pikemen are... there's only 76 of them left, which is good because as soon as they fall, I can just start to do that more and more, just sort of use my mass to push in without fear of being poked to death by pikes. This unit of pikemen is still waiting. Still firing my crossbow bolts into the sides of these guys. Victory does seem certain, but they are getting shaken because of the constant arrow fire. And finally this unit of uruk-hai pikemen is about to fall, which is probably for the best. Well, actually no, victory seems certain all of a sudden. That's strange. But I could really do with these guys being in the fight because they are braced. They will get much more work done. I think I'm getting friendly fire on them though, sadly, but that can't be helped. It's more useful for me to shoot my crossbow bolts in there. He is also shooting fire arrows down, trying to kill my catapult. I was trying to get a side shot onto these guys with my catapult because there was nothing else I could really use my ammunition on. But soon my uruk-hai crossbows will be out of ammunition and I will need to commit them to melee. But that's okay because they've got pretty decent armor on. Nice to have more men. This is what he should have been doing from the start, shooting my units down here. Fire arrows is a bit of a waste though because my units are not going to break. He'd be better off trying to shoot fire arrows into here if he wanted my units to break, but even then most of them are steady. So fire arrows, they look cool, but unless you're very sure that you can break the enemy, it's not really worth it. So back down here, most of the berserkers are now dead, I believe. So we have 6 berserkers still on the front line. The rest of it is mostly uruk-hai infantry and a few uruk-hai pikemen that managed to get to the front. I'm pushing my pikemen to the front because I think they will be the best bet. Still a few berserkers at the front though, so it's going pretty well here, honestly. It may look like it's a grindy choke point fest where neither side is gaining the upper hand, but ultimately I have more in reserve than he has in reserve. At least I can afford to commit. He can send in his last unit of Dunedain Knights with his general in. He has a bunch of heavy archers here as well. But this would mean leaving this area completely without reinforcements. And that is not something that he can really afford to do. It has been pulled back to within 4% though, rather than 5%, so he is starting to do some decent damage to me. Now the uruk-hai pikes that were braced are now in the fight, so it's going to be a nice pokey battle. This unit of crossbows still has ammunition, so I'm going to send them over to the side and keep firing into the side of this unit. Got uruk-hai infantry in reserve that I moved over from the lower section of the wall. I've also got some uruk-hai crossbows that are out of ammunition that I can send to the front if need be. Where did the catapult go? Oh, the catapult's over here. The catapult still hasn't used its ammunition. There's no real good position for me to use the ammunition. Got my unit of berserkers that are in reserve. Unit of pikemen and my guards of all things. I am starting to sort of run a little bit low on reserves, but he's running even lower. So this is as I needed it to be. And this is more like classic medieval too. A very grindy battle in a choke point. Mostly it's his Dunedain Knights on the front line now, actually. His pikemen are sort of a little bit too far back to use their pikes in a lot of cases. Which is, you know, not bad. It means he's going to be doing a lot of damage, but the Dunedain Knights are also going to be slowly dying. And he can't really afford to be losing these guys, because they are his best unit. And if he's going to be finishing off my berserkers, which I still have in reserve, his knights are really the best bet he has. This unit of pikes would be pretty good against the berserkers as well. It might be worth for him at this point thinking about retreating into the final choke point. Maybe putting his unit of pikes that he's got covering this gate on this opening here. Get his Dunedain Knights ready to hold this area, the one with the general in, and then just retreat all of his forces back in and make me work for the final choke point, because at this point I am slowly but surely gaining the upper hand. And unless he commits everything, which even then I think I would still gain the upper hand, because I'm able to fight from 2 big choke points. This would be a pretty big choke point for me to get into as well, but also this choke point is a little bit more difficult to attack through, especially when you've got like units waiting, like Dunedain Knights on the other side of this. So I don't know, he's in a bit of a tricky situation at this point because he's got a lot of stuff committed, and if he tries to retreat, it will end up with a lot of them dying. But as it stands, I can't see him gaining the upper hand. He is very slowly but surely pushing me back out through this choke point. But at the same time, he's losing his men as he's doing so. And that's not something he can afford to do. I've got more pikes coming in. I've also got another unit of berserkers, I believe, ready to come in. I've still got 1 berserker. And he died. Rip. So I have got a unit of berserkers ready to charge in again, and here they go. This will, because the Dunedain Knights are now depleted, these berserkers should finish them off, even with the support of the pikes and the Arnor men-at-arms that are with them. I can't really see them holding this area for too much longer, simply because of the numbers and the berserkers that I have ready to move in. So I've got uruk-hai infantry, and I have uruk-hai pikemen going up against these guys. This is a very depleted defense now. The crossbows certainly did their damage. There's a lot of corpses on this side of the ramp. They're still firing in as well, getting a few kills. Yep, this is a doomed defense, to be honest, at this point, and I'm not really sure what he can do. He's got some Dunedain Rangers, but again, that's not really going to change the outcome of that fight in particular. The catapult crew is moving in. I'm going to try and move the catapult in through the gate. Still firing missiles with those uruk-hai crossbows. Still got a few units in reserve over here, which is good because I need them. But the berserkers are now at the front, and this is where this choke point will very steadily begin to fall. Lots of death going on, lots of damage being dealt by the berserkers. There's not really a great deal they can do against them. The pikemen still have 56 in the unit. That's not bad, but it's nowhere near going to be enough. I've got 132 pikemen just over here. And the berserkers are really starting to push back. All that ground that he regained with his Dunedain Knights is now, they're just being massacred by the berserkers, and they're going to be backed up by infantry and pikemen. So yeah, this defense is very steadily beginning to look like it is lost. And this defense over here, still the pikes hold. Pikes will hold out for a long time. I've got a bunch of infantry in the fight as well with my pikes, and I'm still firing some crossbow bolts in, getting the occasional kill. They're eager, but they're tired. These Arnorian heavy archers are also shaken because of the sheer amount of losses that were inflicted on them by the crossbows. It's not looking good for them. They still have a battle-ready Dunedain unit, but that unit is broken. And now he's retreating his pikes. He knows that this is not a fight that he is going to be winning. Or at least it's not a fight that he's going to... Oh my. There goes the catapult volley. It's not a fight that he's going to be able to keep up for much longer, and I'm pushing in my crossbows, just using them to break the formation. And that has also led to the pikemen breaking. So now I'm just going to pour in with the infantry and the crossbows and set up my pikemen inside the gate. I did take kind of a lot of losses, but it's okay. We have taken this gate, we're now inside the walls, and I can get up onto this wall, and actually because of he has no defences up on the walls anymore, I can get across this bridge and go into the town centre directly, provided I have enough men to do so. They have lost more than half their men, in fact. In fact, we are now starting to pull ahead in terms of percentage killed pretty noticeably. This defense over here is starting to thin out, especially on this side. Dunedain Knights are wavering. You know it's bad when your Dunedain Knights are wavering. These berserkers have lost a few men now, but they are still dishing out the damage. So deadly, the berserkers. So deadly. The pikemen are still, you know, they are depleted, and they are sort of being overrun. And now they're not really useful enough to retreat, so you may as well keep them there. This unit of pikemen is holding this section over here. I am putting some uruk-hai crossbowmen up on the walls, and I think what I was going to do with these guys is actually flank them around over here and put them out this door, so that this blob defense over here starts to crumble, and I was going to put another unit up on this wall and send them across the bridge into the town centre. Was it the uruk-hai infantry? I don't know. Regardless, I do have my pikemen in position. They are significantly lower on numbers than this unit of completely fresh, healthy pikemen. But nonetheless, they will hold. I also have a catapult being brought up through the gates. And I also have a unit of empty uruk-hai crossbows, I believe, and my guards of Orthanc. And my other unit of berserkers is coming up through here now. So I see my opportunity to take this section over here, because this section is slowly going to fall. I still have the advantage over here, but there's no need to rush this attack. It's going in my favour. Over here, on the other hand, I can go directly into his town centre, start attacking his back ranks. And I can also flank around over here to try and infect this attack as well, with some uruk-hai crossbows. They won't get a lot of damage done, but they will disrupt the formation, which is what I'm looking for. He's now moving in his pikes. I think he sees what I'm trying to do, and he needs to do something. These pikes are depleted, but they are still in relatively good health. Sending up this unit of uruk-hai infantry onto the walls, sending this unit of crossbows across the walls, although he is sending up some Dunedain Rangers onto the walls, so it looks like there will be a battle up on the walls as well. But he's running out of reserves to commit to other places at this point. He is sending in some Arnor men-at-arms over here. This unit of uruk-hai crossbows I believe I was going to send in here to Reinforced. That was a bad hit by my catapult. Nice bit of friendly fire. I'm surprised only one uruk-hai crossbow died from that. The Dunedain Rangers will win pretty handily in melee against uruk-hai crossbows, but it will be a long fought fight because the uruk-hai crossbows are pretty survivable. Sending in some uruk-hai crossbows to reinforce this line. This unit of berserkers moving in. I'm sending in this unit of uruk-hai infantry across the bridge into the town centre. There are Dunedain Knights over here, and the Dunedain Knights, if they turn around, will pretty easily beat the uruk-hai infantry. They're not even at full strength after all. But it will occupy them. It will prevent them from reinforcing their defence, which they badly need out here at this point. Uruk-hai infantry. There's still berserkers on the front line. There's only 30 of them left, but again, they've done their damage. So these uruk-hai infantry going to finish off some of these units that routed and returned in the town centre before the Dunedain Knights inevitably turn around. I've got these berserkers over here, my other unit of berserkers, engaging these pikes, just making sure that we can hold this line because, you know, the pikemen and the crossbowmen could have lost. I also sent in my catapult crew because it was out of ammunition. Small bodies for the front. And I have my guards of Orthanc, which my guards of Orthanc I'm going to reinforce the position in the town centre because they are very difficult to kill, especially when they're in Skiltron. And I've taken control of the town centre, so at this point he will need to turn around, otherwise this battle is all but lost. He's not going to break my army in 3 minutes 52 seconds after all. These battle-ready Dunedain, they're steady, but they are not going to win this battle. Get a few kills perhaps, but they won't win against such numbers. And now here comes his general. There is the general. Charging in to the uruk-hai infantry. Sending in my guards of Orthanc though, and that should be a pretty good fight. Sending in my general to try and take the town centre. Defeat seems certain for the pikemen because they are in close quarters engagements with the berserkers, which is, you know, a death sentence to a pikeman. And over here, I am breaking through the defence. The Dunedain Knights that weren't his general unit have crumbled long ago. His pikes are now nearly all dead, and his Arnorian heavy archers that are trying to patch up the line are nowhere near going to be enough. Still got some berserkers that are alive over there. And this unit of Dunedain Knights is about to be surrounded regardless of what he does. And there goes his general, which is a terrible piece of luck for him because it was only a unit of uruk-hai infantry that managed to defeat his general. But it's not looking good. It's not looking good for him at all. Got my guards of the Orthanc. Guards of Orthanc is probably how it should be pronounced. Are ready to move in. And they aren't very damaging, but they will make it so that my position in the town centre is not going to be threatened. Still got some guards of Orthanc stuck in the fight down here, trapped in amongst the berserkers. This line is, it's a relatively even fight this, but it's the only even fight. And if you look over here, I'm about to break through and surround this pike line. Up on this wall over here, his Dunedain Rangers are beating my uruk-hai crossbows as expected. But again, this is probably the least important battle on the field at this point in time. Sending in my other unit of berserkers that were fighting to surround this Dunedain Knight unit. Sending the guards of Orthanc across the bridge as well, so this is all but over. I just pushed in the catapult in to try and disrupt his lines after it was out of ammunition. Don't know what I'm doing with this big blob of troops over here. I think there's still a unit or something that I'm fighting. Or is there? Interesting. Well, I guess I'm not pushing them up at the moment. But here is the guards of Orthanc. The Dunedain Knights still say victory seems certain despite the fact they're being attacked by berserkers, uruk-hai infantry, and soon guards of Orthanc. So, you know, I can't fault their commitment, but at this point it may as well be the case that we speed the battle up. The Dunedain Knights will hold for a good long time though, even against units as elite as the ones they're up against. But their general also died, so that was unfortunate for them. My general is in the Guards of Orthanc unit, but it's in Skiltron, so the chances of them actually managing to kill my general and rout my entire army are very small indeed. And so the player admits defeat. So there we go. Really, there were a few things in his defense that he could have done significantly better. You know it's bad when the attacker gets more kills than the defender, especially when it's an orc faction that's on the attack. It was really towards the end where I pulled ahead, though. It was pretty close for a long time in terms of killed units, but yeah, not great. As far as my units go, of course, the berserkers were what got me a lot of kills, 345. That was the first one I sent in, I believe. No, actually, because they gained experience, so it'll be this one, the first one I sent in, because they died to the last man. Guards of Orthanc only got 9 kills, of course, sent them in very late on. This unit of pikes did relatively well. Uruk-hai infantry did pretty well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and I'm not really sure what I'll do with the channel in the long run. I'm not really sure how to proceed considering recent events. I know that I'll do Third Age Reforged quite a lot when it is released, because of course that's basically just a nice extension of Third Age, and it is multiplayer focused, which I prefer to focus on more than the single player stuff, which Moss and Divide and Conquer are more designed for. As for other things though, I'm really not sure. It's something which I'll just play by ear for the time being. I mean, we'll see, but I hope you stick around.